It's hard for me to separate the challenges that came through the pandemic and caring, because the two things happened at the same time and they started at the same time. The biggest challenge for me was adapting to the role and not knowing where the boundaries were and where to get help, really.
When I started caring for her full time, obviously it was just the huge adjustment of having her live with me, but with the added complications, I suppose, of all the rules around COVID and the pandemic.
Getting advice and support, that was the biggest challenge. I felt very on my own with it. Even though I had family and I could talk to my friends to some extent and talk to my dad as well to some extent, I felt very isolated.
And I realised that I had no training, no expertise, no experience, nothing, and that I hoped there would be some kind of community or network out there that I could reach out to.
One of the great things from Carers Manchester was when I started talking to people, I realised I wasn't crazy and this was a difficult job that I was trying to do and I needed help.
I realised that we were standing 6 feet apart, but when we actually got to the supermarkets, I was being told that I had to be separate from my son, and I'm his carer. He's a grown man, but I'm still his carer. And I did notice that there were a lot of other people that were carers were getting the same sort of treatment. People were looking on. It was very, very stressful. And that was one of the reasons, in the end, that I did contact the contact line. When I contacted the line, at the end of the conversation, I was amazed, really amazed at the help that I did get. I initially phoned regarding how do I get this letter that I had heard about. You can get a letter for people that are disabled, etc., to jump the queues at supermarkets. I was informed about that, where to go.
I was introduced to Hayley, who is my contact and who was the worker that supported me following that online course for 6 weeks with weekly calls, which were brilliant. And I was able to talk to Hayley in more detail about the help I needed. I didn't really know where to start with things, and she was able to navigate, help me get a carer's assessment for myself and a care assessment for my mum. She was a great listener as well. She'd just ask, how's your week been? And I was able to tell her.
When you're talking to somebody who's actually listening, who cares, who wants to understand your case so that they can help you more effectively, you can tell, and it's quite powerful. So I got really, really, really good practical help from Carers Manchester, but also the fact that the people who work there really care about their job. That's important as well, because like I say, sometimes you feel very isolated and it's hard to get perspective.
The first event that I went to was on International Carers Day, and Carers Manchester had a series of talks and seminars happening that day, and I went along and was just introduced to lots of helpful people who could give me advice about Mum's dementia condition, my rights as a carer, her rights as someone who was in need of care, and it opened up a whole world of support, which I'm really grateful for.
The support that I got after phoning the contact point absolutely made a difference. I definitely felt that I wasn't on my own.
The support that I had, or I'm having, from Carers Manchester is genuinely phenomenal. And above the level that I would expect, and I mean that in a good way. I mean, if good is here, the support that I've had is up here, definitely.
People actually care about you. I didn't know that people actually really cared.